Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. It is time for another installment of Monday Q&A. And I'm back in my natural habitat, even if it is only for a few days. By the time this video comes out, I will actually be in Hungary. I'm playing Ziget Festival with Club Cabaret. We just wrapped a 9.5-week season of Club Cabaret in Sydney, which was amazing fun. It was challenging. I missed home immensely, especially seeing my wife and my cats, but it was also incredibly satisfying. We did 54 shows. They were all really well attended. I got to meet so many of you in the flesh and to catch up with so many of my mates in Sydney. And it is nice to be back, just like around my stuff, you know, guitars that need to be played and cleaned and serviced. And I've had a pretty crazy week, just basically getting another 2 weeks of content ready so I can schedule it all while I'm away. But these are me problems, and I'm not here to talk about me problems. I'm here to answer your questions. This particular Q&A is powered by all the amazing people who support me and what I do over on Patreon. My Patreon is linked in the video description if you want to get some exclusive perks or you just want to say thanks and you want to keep the lights on and my cats fed. Let's dive straight into this week's questions. My favorite solo ever played on a Les Paul or played on a Strat. I really like this type of specific question because we all have our favorite, say, guitar solos or riffs or recordings, and we all have our favorite pieces of gear. It's kind of nice to calibrate the two together. When I think of a Les Paul tone, a few particular things come to mind, but when I think of a solo on a Les Paul, and I don't know if it's my favorite solo or it's just my favorite Les Paul powered tone, but it's probably still got the blues. You know, that intro in particular is just the definition of a thick, sustaining Les Paul lead tone on there. You know, this could kind of be any Gary Moore song. And in fact, I could probably choose my favorite solo played on a Les Paul by Gary Moore and my favorite solo played on a Strat by Gary Moore, but I won't. Still Got the Blues is definitely one up there. The live solo that I think Brian Robertson plays on Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous, Still in Love with You. That was the first guitar solo I ever tried to learn, so that one would be another one that I would happily nominate. Or John Sykes, Crying in the Rain, because we got to have some Sykes in there on that black Les Paul Custom. When it comes to Strat solos, I mean, one of the reasons I got into playing rock music was Richie Blackmore, in particular, the Deep Purple California Jam video on there. That's just some god tier stratification on there. But I think my favorite Blackmore solo is probably the solo who plays in Gates of Babylon. That is just a tour de force. So that would be one up there. Uli Roth, Sails of Sharon, or, you know, any Malmsteen solo on there, or any Gilmour solo played with a Strat. Again, some of my favorite Gilmour solos were played on Les Pauls, which is kind of funny as well. So, you know, we're just kind of rolling through all the guitar heroes here. But yeah, let's maybe just go with Still Got the Blues for the tone, because that's what I think of. And let's go with Gates of Babylon, just to be different. Some 4-cable method tips and tricks for the FM9 and FM3. I did an FM3 4-cable method video a little while ago that definitely needs to be revised, because that worked for my setup, but a lot of people have left some feedback saying that didn't quite work for theirs. So I do want to revisit that one. And I still need to do the FM9 4-cable method video, because in my opinion, the FM9 is the best unit in the Fractal lineup if you want to use it with a real amp for that kind of setup, just because it's got the extra ins and outs on there. And you don't need any special cables or anything like that to make it work. So over the next month, I'm going to make that a goal to do that video. Keep your ears and your eyes open for that one. Let me know if you have any specific questions related to it, and I will do my best to work that into the video. 2 questions from friend of the channel, Roy. The first one, do I think the ease of getting great guitar tones hampers creativity? And the second one, why don't we see Strats with 3 volume controls? Let's answer the first one very quickly in there. I think one element that you might be touching on there, Roy, is that say you open up an Axe-Fx or you get a Neural DSP plugin and everything in it sounds amazing. It can be hard to commit to a sound because you have that grass is always greener on the other side effect where, wow, this sounds so good. Maybe the next preset I load up will sound even better. Maybe if I just tweak a few things, I can get it sounding better. And there is a great quote about making music. How do you know when your piece of music or your mix or your recording is finished? when you stop working on it. And I think that applies to guitar tones as well. What I've found recently is I actually spend way less time kind of obsessing over the guitar sound. I'll just go for whatever works first. Like, I don't care if it's a JCM 800 or a Mark series or a fractal or a plugin. As long as it's appropriate for what I want to do, then I'm just going to roll with that and I'm going to omit it from my mind. It's just kind of like a mindfulness coping strategy there. If it sounds good, it is good. As long as you're happy playing, then focus on the actual playing aspect of it. And by playing, you know, if you just kind of play and maybe you get a bit frustrated, but you play through it, that's normally when you come across your cool ideas. And when the creative juices start flowing, you kick into that flow state with your practice. And basically everything I've ever written in my life has come out of like, oh, this is a cool guitar sound. Then I'll start playing things that I know. Maybe I'll make a mistake and I'll stumble across something I really dig. So I can understand that option paralysis is a thing with modern gear, but I think if you just turn the internet on and look up any guitar-related song or video or anything new coming out, there's actually so much creativity being tapped into. Everyone can go and make amazing sounding records and videos now. And yeah, maybe it's a bit oversaturated because of that, but I think it's an excellent thing. There's so many great players out there. There's so many great songs. Anyone who sits back and goes, oh, music was better back in the day before I got old and when I liked the things that I liked and when they were popular. You know, if you're 18 years old now and you're hearing guitar music, it's probably going to inspire you to pick it up and want to do those things as well. And I love that I've got students where I can just say, hey, you want to get that thing? You can go and get a cheap interface and a $100 plugin and start making music yourself. Anyway, getting philosophical then, I've got this very aggressive pointing pen. I'm going to put this down. A Strat with 3 volume controls. For me personally, I love a master volume control on a guitar because I always know where it is. So no matter what pickup I'm on, I want to do some volume swells, or I just want to turn my volume control down in between playing so it doesn't just hiss and buzz. I like to know where it is, but the blending capabilities are pretty interesting. And a really good example of this, it's not 3 volumes, it's 2, is the jazz bass layout, right? Think about a classic jazz bass and how you can get a range of different tones by blending the pickups on there. I'm kind of curious to know how this would work, whether it would be as effective as maybe some people think, because a lot of people don't use the tone control on a Strat. I like to use the tone control on a Strat. Really have to credit my buddy Warren Mendoza for kind of pushing me to explore the controls on a Strat a lot more because he does so many amazing things with them. But what I find on something like a jazz bass, a lot of the time is, you know, the blending, maybe it's the values of the pots or something like that. You know, it kind of sounds best at the extremes where you have one turned right down and one all the way up, or one volume halfway up and the other all the way up, kind of like the middle position on a Les Paul. So if you've got a guitar with 2 volume controls, Roy, maybe experiment with, say, the volume control on each pickup and blending them and seeing what you can get out of them. And then maybe you could extend that to a Strat style concept. It may just be overkill and the subtlety that you think you're getting may not come out, or it may be amazing. You never know if you never go. How would I go about dialing in a guitar sound for a baritone guitar as opposed to a regular scale guitar? Well, this also comes into the territory of how would I dial in a sound for a guitar that's tuned lower versus, say, the same guitar in standard tuning. It's really funny this came up because I was chatting to my buddy Charles Chillier, who I got to hang out with a bunch of times in Sydney. Charles is an amazing guitar builder and tech. He helped me out with a few issues that I had with some of my guitars while I was there. Shout out to Charles. He's a legend. And you all saw the Chillier Bell Aurora that I played while I was in Sydney. More about that soon. I won't talk about it just now, but yeah, again, keep your ears and your eyes open for more clips with that guitar. Nevertheless, we were talking about baritones, and Charles made the point he was in a band in the late 90s. He's trying to record some stuff in drop C and was really struggling. He was using really heavy strings and the tone wasn't quite the same. And he ended up building himself a baritone, stringing it with light strings, and that was kind of the secret to getting the tone he had in his head. So for me, I think that all comes down to managing low end to the input of your amplifier. So when I'm, say, dialing in a tone on a standard tune guitar, you know, just kind of do the thing, get it happening, then I might pick up my PRS SC245, which lives in drop C, and is a darker sounding guitar. It's got a lot of low and low mid content. What I will do is either use a kind of boost to remove a little bit of low end, pump up the mid range, give it a bit of extra spice, or you can just use a filter in front of your amp, or say if you're on a fractal, you can use the low cut in the amp block from around 120 to maybe 250 hertz, just to take out all that extra low-end energy you're getting out of a guitar that's tuned down or a baritone guitar in there. I think baritones generally are designed so you can get that tight sound happening out of there, but a lot of traditional guitar amplifiers aren't really designed for like a low C or a low B, so they can get overloaded in the preamp. So you just take a little bit of that signal out, keeps everything nice and tight, and that's kind of the recipe for modern high gain anyway, like cut bass before the gain stages, boost gain afterwards. It's why Mark Series amps are so great. How to set up ducking in the Fractal multi-tap delay. It's actually very straightforward. There is a dedicated ducking section in the multi-tap delay. Much like the actual delay block, they're the same controls. I would normally go for between like 9 and 15 dB of attenuation, with the release around 100, 150 milliseconds and the threshold somewhere below minus 40 dB on there. So amazing feature, ducking delays in general. If you like your big wet delays like I do, filling up the space, but they can get a little bit too intense and they make your playing a bit muddy, ducking delay works great. You can also filter out the delay repeats. I like a high cut around 4 kilohertz, and a bit of a low cut on there can help a lot as well. If you go and grab my blocks library, which is linked in the video description, by the way, you can have a lot of these things pre-dialed and just plug them straight into your Fractal and have a great time. But how great is the multi-tap delay? How to dial in a Reb Beach style tone if you've got a Marshall JMP style amplifier and some fun 80s inspired pedals. There is an old interview with Reb, I think around the time they did the second Winger album. It's in like a Guitar Player or a Guitar for the Practicing Musician magazine, one of those things that was circulating around at the time, where he talks about dialing in his guitar sound for the Winger records, where essentially all the time-based effects were added in post. So they were pretty much recording the amp dry, and Reb's got I believe it's a John Suhr modded Marshall that has kind of been his main amp for a long time. You can probably find these articles online where he just talks about how he dials it in. There was like a way he was shown back in the day when he was doing sessions. That's just always how he ran his Marshall. But from what I remember in this interview, he just kind of says, he's like, the studio has eventides and Roland delays and lexicons, so why not use these incredible high-end effects on the dry guitar signal rather than, say, put a delay pedal in the effects loop. But that runs us into the question of, if you don't have those things and you want to listen to your guitar through a cabinet, how do you go about doing it? And the first thing I'll note is it's going to be a very different experience. You're trying to cop Reb Beach's recorded tone versus the tone in the room. That's going to be different. But let's say you are recording it, stick a 57 in front of your cab, or use a load box and grab my free IR in the video description. And then you could use a few plugins. Like I love the Sound Toys Micro Shift plugin. Echo Boy and Little Plate are amazing plugins. Fab Filter makes some great time-based effects. I really like their Timeless Delay plugin. And of course, Pro Q3, Pro MB, they're all amazing plugins. So trying to cop the recorded tone with your amplifier, do everything in post with the effects. Either use a load box or mic up your cab, put it in a separate room, or do the wet, dry, wet thing in a sort of Van Halen inspired method. All of this requires lots of extra gear on there. But, I think the main thing with Reb's tone is obviously Reb is an incredible player, but Reb's got an amazing groove. He's such a good rhythm guitar player. And if you listen to him and you watch him play live, he's got so much control over his attack. He's just a very tidy player, which is kind of like guys like Nuno Bettencourt. Yeah, they're these legendary shredders, but it's actually their rhythm guitar playing that keeps me coming back to them, and the way they play influences the tone as well. A few more questions to round out this video. The first one is about side projects. Have I ever considered exploring anything outside of Ragdoll? Well, I just got done doing the club cabaret season, which was 9.5 weeks of my life. We did a 3-week season in New Zealand earlier as well. And that's been really satisfying because it is a hybrid between live music, circus, burlesque, drag. It's this kind of multimedia extravaganza. And I'm not playing my music. I just get to go up and have fun. And there's not a lot of, say, parental supervision with the band there. So you can stretch things out. And I can be creative in a way that maybe I wouldn't be in Ragdoll, where I'm playing my own music and I really want to go out and play my best. You know, we just did the Yngwie Malmsteen tour here in Australia. Well, 2 months ago now. How time flies. But that was amazing, getting to go out and play to packed rooms full of guitar players and play songs that we wrote and guitar parts that I wrote in front of people who are massive guitar fans, and to get to chat to them after the shows and talk about the gear that I use and how I approach songwriting. And we got so much great feedback from that. It was such an incredible experience. You can go and watch the vlog if you want to watch that as well. It's up on my channel. That, you know, it's taken me a long time to realize that there's not just one way to be satisfied creatively or artistically. It's actually mostly about doing these creative exercises with people I like. You know, I've been playing with Ryan and Cam in Ragdoll for like 15 plus years now. I've got to know those guys so well. They are like the brothers that I never had, and we've got a relationship which shows because of all that time. You know, we've grown up together, and we've grown up musically together. We've shared some amazing experiences together. We've shared some absolutely awful experiences together. And, you know, as the old saying goes, you know, it's kind of the friends you make along the way. That's the real treasure out of there. We're also really lucky that we've been able to record and document so much of this as well. But, you know, doing the club cabaret shows, the cast are incredible. You know, they're equally as passionate about what they do, whether it is sword swallowing or whether it's doing drag or whether it's hanging from the ceiling and doing gymnastics by your hair. Just being in that environment where people, I think, are just as dedicated to their craft as you are is a wonderful thing to be around. So for me, any kind of side project, you know, I wouldn't go and do another original music band with anybody else at this stage in my life. You know, maybe down the track, I'll do some solo music and just go out and play to backing tracks with lights on and just do that kind of thing, because that's super fun. I've done some clinics in the past where I've really enjoyed just playing guitar, but the music that I like is music with a full band, with vocals, and I get to play guitar in that band and go and express myself. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what's going to come up over the next couple of years. This year in particular has been crazy in terms of how busy I've been traveling, playing music. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been incredibly satisfying and challenging as well. So yeah, that kind of answers that question. And the last one that I want to get into here, you know, with all of this, what's my practice routine like? And at the moment, it's basically just practicing the songs that I have to learn before I go out and do a live show. So one thing I really like doing is just doing a live stream and playing through the entire Ragdoll discography. That is kind of practice for me, because I get to kind of move through all the gears with what I do. You know, they're my songs, they're my playing, they're my parts on there. And being able to play those songs well, I think just calibrates my overall playing in a way that I don't think anything else does. You know, I've spent a lot of time over the years practicing with a metronome and really diving deep into the technical aspect of the instrument. But nowadays it's like more a mental exercise for me. It's more about how am I going to go on stage and be relaxed and be comfortable? How am I going to extract the maximum amount of enjoyment out of the live experience or the studio experience? That's kind of why I practice, just so I can enjoy those moments. It's less about, you know, I want to be the greatest guitar player in the world. If I go out and I play a few shows in a row and I keep making the same mistake consistently, then I will go and work on that. But yeah, I kind of like just having that get up in the morning, pick up a guitar and see what happens side of practicing. Maybe in a year I'll be way more regimented because there's some styles that I want to learn. Maybe I really want to get into jazz fusion and do that, and I've got to practice a lot. But yeah, I find that having shorter focused sessions, maybe like once a week, once every 2 weeks for technique stuff, when I feel like I'm letting something kind of drift away, to take that opportunity to go back and maybe nail some more aspects of it. But yeah, it's really just kind of coming down to playing and playing songs, playing through entire pieces of music rather than just doing guitar calisthenics. And, you know, one thing I've noticed on, especially on YouTube, like, you know, they've been pushing shorts a lot. There's all these videos that are popping up for me anyway, which is like how to have the best practice routine. And as people approaching the guitar the way you would approach building muscle, purely for aesthetics in the gym. You know, nothing against that. That's a fantastic way to spend your time. And I know a lot of people watching this do that. I mean, I go into the gym and I work out as well, and I have a very structured kind of practice in there. But I personally don't think of music in the same way. Like, you know, guitar isn't something you should look at just being good at. It's a vehicle for musical expression. And as such, you know, you should have multiple ways of doing that. Playing songs, maybe every now and then, really deep diving techniques. But I think it's good to have variety. It's good to keep the focus on having fun. If you've got specific songs or licks you want to learn, chipping away at them consistently, not trying to do it all in one big hero dose, and enjoying the process. That's the main thing. And always being in that mindset of trying to grow, whether it's getting better at something, learning something new, or just kicking back with a bunch of greasy delays and just relishing the fact that guitar is one of the best ways you can spend your time on earth. Anyway, again, waxing philosophical. Thank you to all my amazing patrons for their questions on this week's video. If you've got some questions you would like me to answer on the next Q&A video, pop them in the video description. I will see you all on the next one. Be safe, be good to one another. Cheers.